Hey guys, this is Holly with Curated Homeschooling. Today I wanted to do a wrap up of how our first unit of homeschool went this year. Today is Friday of the third week that we've been doing this 4-week homeschool unit. So I have one more week that will be the completion of this unit. I've already just started to filter out things that we've already completed and moved all the things that we want to complete this last week into a couple of different areas of my home so that we make sure we get those done. One of those is actually just a basket that's literally right here. And that will just remind me that those are some of the items that we need to complete this week. I have made a couple of different to-do lists. Next week, we are going to complete our diorama. They're going to turn in their expository essays. My son actually, my 7th grader has already taken his general science, his Apologia General Science Module 3 test yesterday, so that's complete. They're also working on each of them have an assigned chapter book, and they will complete their chapter books next week. And we also are mostly done with the first chapter of The Good and the Beautiful's level 5, and we're about halfway through the chapter 1 level 6. So by the end of the week, we'll have the concepts within the chapter 1 of both level 5 and level 6 completed. And then we have kind of a running to-do sheet of activities and things we want to complete. We're almost done with a book about carnivorous plants. We'll finish that up Monday or Tuesday next week. I have a leaf detective book that we'd like to read that's a picture book. I have a documentary about the Amazon that we want to do. Today they're going to be watching Paddington in Peru and doing the Finder Seekers. This afternoon they're doing this activity that's a Finder Seekers. Basically, the concept is that there is a crime and they have to solve the crime. And so they come in packets, and I had gotten this one is set in the Amazon last spring. And so when we got this one, I just tucked it away and planned on us doing this for this unit because I knew we were going to be studying this in our first unit of homeschool. So they're going to do this evening when their older siblings are both back, and we'll do that as kind of a family activity. I also have a little bit of an economics lesson that I want to do next week if we can get to it. It's basically just the economics lesson I want to do is about the miraculous pencil. I'm going to use the Tuttle Twins book that talks about the essay that was completed by Leonard Reed. And we will also look at how a pencil is made using the How It's Made book. And I will have them do a nature journaling activity with this as well. We made arroz con pollo, which is a Costa Rican chicken. There are lots of different recipes for chicken and rice that you can get from multiple different countries, but that's the one we used. We also made some fried sweet plantains, and those were super delicious. We had a Universal Yums box from Colombia, and that was fun. The kids are creating their dioramas. We started and adjusted a little bit. When we started the dioramas, each of the kids were doing an individual diorama, but having 4 different boxes out for multiple weeks proved to be difficult in terms of space management because we were having to move them to countertops and then to kitchen table and all sorts of things. So we have decided instead that they're just doing one diorama and working as a group, which is giving them some time to do teamwork. We also made our homemade chocolate, and with that they watched quite a few YouTube videos about how chocolate is processed from the cocoa bean through the process to become cocoa powder and cocoa butter. And then we also watched some people make homemade chocolate with those things. So basically what I've done is just taken everything out of this book, this 3-ring binder that I use for homeschool. I've taken the things that we had that were related to this fall unit out, and that leaves me with even the title page is now our second unit, and when I open it, it is our plans for our Greek unit. So it's ready to go, and I can put this into, a envelope or however I want to keep this to show what we were able to accomplish. I have also, now that we're close to being done with this unit, in my Erin Condren scheduler, I utilize the page that looks like this. It comes after all of the weekly schedule, like daily schedule pages. If you go to the next page, it's just a regular page. And so I go ahead and just write down all of the skills and things that we were able to complete with this particular unit. This gives me a really concrete idea of what we were able to accomplish, what we are working on. When I look back, I can go back to these and know exactly kind of what we were able to get done. So it includes the documentaries that we watched, the nature journaling we did, the projects we completed, my kids' science, what they completed. I'll go ahead and put their grades for their tests on there. I'll include what math lessons they got done, and then what we did for grammar, for writing, for reading, for art, for history, and for geography. So I know what countries we covered. I also have that we did our expository essays, and that we really focused in on the thesis statements, and we're thinking about how our body can support the claims that we make in our thesis statements. Even though I don't keep grades for my elementary school students or my middle school students on a transcript like I do for my high schoolers, I do like to give them feedback about how they're doing. So I do give them some grades. So as I'm thinking about a unit, I think about what things are going to apply towards their grades. So one of the things that is going to apply towards their grade, this unit, is going to be the diorama that they're completing as a group. I'm going to have them each give themselves their own score for that, and then I'm going to score how they did on their diorama as well. The things I'm looking at is completion of the overall project, how they labeled their project, whether the construction is done well and is neat, the teamwork they had during the building of the diorama. And then I also have a couple of worksheets that they're going to do individually that I want them to complete. Each of them have their own organisms that they chose that they are doing an expository essay on. So I want them to fill out how their particular organism works within the ecosystem. And then I also want them to show their individual organism within the trophic level. So for example, if they have a sloth, then they would be a consumer, and they would list the producer and the other consumers that come after in trophic levels beyond them. For example, like the harpy eagle eats the sloth. And so they will go ahead and basically list a food chain, And then they will also go ahead and say producer, consumer, consumer, for example, just so they can show their understanding of trophic levels. And then finally, part of their grade for the elementary aged kids is going to be their expository essay. And my older son, or my seventh grader, he also is completing general science apologia. So he had a test at the end of this. So that is also going to be factored into his grade. And like I said, I'm not going to necessarily keep his grade on a transcript or anything like that, but that just gives him some overall feedback of how much time and effort he's putting into his grades, so that he kind of knows if he needs to work a little harder, or if that I'm noticing that he is working really hard, that sort of thing. And also just kind of gets him ready so that in a couple of years when he's a freshman, he's used to being graded on his work that he completes. With this unit, we were also able to borrow some kind of fun little decorations and things that were from Peru. Our next door neighbor is from Peru, and so she was super excited that we were studying about South America, and had some different things she wanted to share with the kids. So that was super fun. And I went ahead and asked the kids, I asked my younger kids, my 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, and 12-year-old, what their favorite parts of this unit have been. And they said that they really just love learning about the rainforest. It's a super interesting habitat, and they really enjoyed learning about the different animals that live there. They enjoyed some of the documentaries that we watched. Documentaries that we watched were the Serengeti Rules, which is a nature PBS documentary, which is free if you're an Amazon Prime member. It's on Prime Video that you can watch. We also watched Jungle Eagle, which is another nature one. This one is harder to get. It used to be on Prime, but it's not on Prime anymore. And then the third one is also on Prime, and it is called a sloth called Velcro, or Velcro the Sloth, something like that. And the way we kind of did that was we used this one to talk about keystone species, and then we used this one and the sloth one to see, because a sloth is kind of a lower trophic level than the jungle eagle. So we were able to talk about kind of their link in the ecological structure of the rainforest, and it was just interesting to learn about each of those different creatures. So in closing, this was a really fun unit, and I'm glad that we went ahead and kicked off our year this way. The kids are feeling really motivated and feel like school is really fun, which is how I want them to feel when we're starting school. And if anything, we all wish that this unit was a little bit longer, but we are going to be digging into a 10-week unit here starting in September. Until then, thank you guys so much for joining me on this YouTubing journey. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to continue to follow along, and we will see you next week. Have a great week.